Morning, everyone, and welcome to our Heavenly Parent Holy Community, Oceania, Hoon. And today we have Barbara, who will be our guest presenter. And it is Sunday, the 10th of April, or the 10th of March in the 10th year of Chongyal Cook. So let's begin by offering a bow to our Heavenly Parent and True Parents. Kambay. Haro. And let's recite our family pledge both in Korean and English. Thank you.
가전맨세 7. 전일국 주인 우리 가족은 참 사랑을 중심하고 본연의 혈통과 연결된 위하는 생활을 통하여 심존 문화 세계를 완성할 것을 맹세하나이다.
Family pledge number 7. Our family, the owner of Chongyal Group, pledges through living for the sake of others to perfect the world based on the culture of heart, which is rooted in the original lineage by centering on true love. I'd like to ask Crystal if she could offer the opening prayer, please.
Okay, please. Am I heard?
Yes.
Okay, everyone, please join me in prayer. Good morning to you, our dearest loving Heavenly Parent and victorious true parents of heaven, earth, and humankind. At this very moment of time, we truly would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to you for extending our lives and also for allowing us to be able to gather here as one family to be able to study your words through this morning devotion. Truly, Heavenly Parent, the fact that we could be able to come together as one family through this morning Hunduke is truly an amazing gift that we could ever receive from you. And as we begin this day, we are grateful, Heavenly Parent, that you have guided us through our true parents to be able to have this kind of tradition, wherein we could be able to start our day by studying your words, at the same time to truly listen to the beautiful testimonies of our elders, of our brothers and sisters, where we could be able to learn from Heavenly Parent and how much we have to live our life of faith every day, Heavenly Parent. Truly, we would like to also repent for all the shortcomings and also our limitations each day. At the same time, we really would like to renew as well our commitment as well as our pledges before you as we continuously receive your guidance and also this kind of extension of our lives. Really wanted to determine ourselves on how much we could be able to have this artistic connection with you and with our true parents. Truly thank you for today, and really please claim this Hunduke, this morning devotion that we are going to have together with my brothers and sisters. Truly from the bottom of my heart, I'd like to report this prayer to God and true parents' name.
Okay, Archie, and thank you, and let's give a warm welcome to Barbara as she shares with us this morning. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. This has been a rather, of course, when you want to do a testimony, lots of things jump up in front of you, and this week was very challenging in many ways, and I certainly haven't got the presentation the way I would have loved, but you know, we'll get there together because as John reminds me, we're family, so you can understand, I hope. All right. I guess it's first thing to say is I'm very lucky to have come to True Parents in this lifetime. I've heard so many of your testimonies and marveled at that at such an early age, teenage years, you were drawn to True Parents and have followed the path and that life so determinedly and so well. And I feel like such an interloper in a way, because I only came to the church in the last few years, and I certainly didn't come looking for true parents. I came looking for love, and I went on a spiritual dating website and met Roosevelt-Loyd Jr. on there, and he had been with the church since the early 70s and had had a rather tumultuous time. He's very open spiritually, so he had some extraordinary experiences. He did some street preaching. He got arrested for it. He traveled all around the country, being the USA, and eventually met his spiritual mother, and was just, devoted, very devoted, but very, what would you say, not easy for him, because he's so spiritually open, to be, bubbly and communicative like I am. So he had a much more vertical relationship with God, and his relationship with his brothers and sisters and with the central figures didn't work quite so well. But he was determined to live a different life, and he ended up on the Two Peaks Mesa in the high New Mexico desert near Taos, and he was there for about 30 years before I came along. And he'd built himself a little house called the Dragonfly, which I have in a picture somewhere. But he was living there out in the, as I said, in the New Mexico desert, surrounded by the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, the Blood of Christ Mountains, which are extraordinary mountain range, by the way. And when you feel the whole mesa, which is a volcanic plateau, surrounded by these incredible mountains, it's quite a scene. But being off-grid, of course, there's no electricity, no running water. So that was quite an adventure. But anyway, let me go back. I remember Teddy didn't really want to be my spiritual parent, although he really is. But he suggested that I get a different spiritual parent, somebody who wasn't involved as we were hoping to be. I started looking at the church online, and of course saw all the horrendous publicity and the horrible stories, and freaked out a bit and started praying like mad. I'd been very, what do you say, a religious child, I guess, very evangelical. So I already had quite a firmly established relationship with God in my heart, and so I started praying like mad about who was this sun young moon, and what was I getting involved in. And then I sort of had many religious experiences in my life, so I thought, well, it's okay, he can have his beliefs and I'll just have mine and it'll be all fine. But my spiritual parents at the church, Rick McInerney and his lovely wife Tazakor, often said when I first came to the church, you must have had really good ancestors. So let's start by having a look at my ancestors, if I can share the screen somehow. Let me see. Oh, pretty, pretty. This is my parents. On the left is Karol Vondracek. He's a true Bohemian, born in Prague. And my mother, Patricia Maud Allerley Hussey de Berg. It's quite a long and interesting story on her side. But anyway, they were my parents. This is my mother's side of the family. My grandmother, all of those women are Maud, my grandmother, and that's Mama on the chair there. They were Irish. Maud was Maud Alice Talbot Plunkett Hussey de Berg. She's got quite a checkered history, and it's bringing in influences from France and Spain. And Claire Doherty did a reading for me, and she said that this is not my relationship and marriage and blessing to Teddy, which is Roosevelt, shortened. It's not the first time that there's this mixture of opposites in this case, Maud was very green and she was a Quaker, and very religious woman, and just wonderful. I just got a lot of good things from her. And she married an opposite, which was Samuel Ellerly, who was an Orangeman. His ancestors had come over to Ireland with William of Orange, and basically probably kicked some poor Irish farmer off their land, and was given as his ancestors as an officer in William of Orange's troops, was given land there in Ireland. And he was in Belfast. He was a policeman first of all, and then served as a town councillor on the Belfast Town Council, and was a very upright man. If Granddad, I never met them, unfortunately, but if he wanted to go to the toilet, he was so Victorian and so very proper that he would get up and he'd put his hat and coat on and go out the front door and walk around the house and come in the back way to go to the toilet, because he didn't want anybody to know that he was going to the toilet. This was how Victorian and how straight-laced they all were. It was quite funny. And somehow he and Maud had a very happy and long marriage. He was a Protestant, Irish Protestant, and as I said, Grandma Maud was Quaker. This is the other side of the family. My father's side, he was a true Bohemian, he used to always tell me. That's him on the bottom left of that picture in his little pilot hat. And that woman is Barbara Dvorak. I was named after her, related somewhere back to Antonin Dvorak. And Barbara had between 10 and 11 children, and that's only 5 of the children there. A lot of the children were killed during World War II. It was really quite tragic. My father, he was first of all part of the Czech cavalry, and he was found under a bridge by the Nazis and tortured and left for dead there. He survived, went on, joined the French resistance, was captured again and put into another concentration camp that he again escaped from, and he headed to the mountains. And there he found a group of Jewish people who were fleeing certain death, and they lived in Paris. So he helped them over the mountains, and they escaped back to France and Paris, where they had a hotel on the Champs-Élysées, a big hotel, and they hired Dad as like their head of security. And he was there and enjoyed the Moulin Rouge and Pigalle and all of those wonderful things in Paris there for a few years before the trauma. And he was deeply traumatized by his experiences during the war. It became too much for him, and he decided to go to the other side of the world, being Australia. So he jumped on a ship and came out here. And I just think such a romantic story. They both ended up in Brisbane, in Queensland, and there was a naturalisation ceremony at the Brisbane City Hall. And they literally, when Some Enchanted Evening, that beautiful song, was playing, they saw each other across a crowded room, fell in love, and Dad invited Mum to go to the beach on the weekend, and she accepted. And she thought, oh, he's going to come in some beautiful car. He looks so handsome. He must be a, European aristocrat. And he turned up on his motorbike with sidecar, and off they went to Redcliffe Beach. And they were married within 2 weeks, loved each other their whole life. And even though there was a lot of, often similar to Teddy and my problems in terms of such different cultures, and but they handled them all very well. At first, Dad didn't understand English very well, so Mama was the main breadwinner, and I became. Oh, let's see if I have another picture here of it. my mother came to Australia with my brother Desmond. That's my brother Desmond and his wife Gloria. And they've had 3 children. This is Michael and his daughter Sarah. He has more children, of course, but this is a sort of huge Victorian country farming family that has developed around Des and Gloria. It's very wonderful, really. I'll just look for the... Hi. That's me as a baby, me and my brother, and me and my father closer to the end of his life, about a year before he passed. He had various health issues too. He had even though he was a very strong man, he had his leg amputated due to diabetes. And on the day he came home from the hospital, he fell over and opened the whole thing up again. And so I had to carry him and chase the ambulance back to the hospital. It was quite awful. He never quite got his nerve back after that. But Mama and I looked after him. And yeah, he died in 1979. I think that's all of it. So yeah, so that's Mama and Daddy, and they were having such a hard time in Brisbane in those days. It was all very, Dad was called a new Australian bastard, pardon my French. This is the way they described newcomers to Australia. And they were horrified, so they decided to go and see the outback, and ended up on a sheep station near Longreach in central Western Queensland. I always love that Jacinta and I share that. We both grew up in the Australian outback, which is quite an experience and a wonderful thing I've come to learn. Mama, first of all, worked as a cook, which is hilarious because she was no cook, and Dad was a handyman there on the sheep station. And they were there for about 3 or 4 years before moving into Longreach itself. I had various operations when I was a baby and when I was a little girl, but I never thought I was going to die, even though the word was getting around that they're very sorry to hear of the death of their daughter. But I lived on. Ha ha ha! God had plans. When I was about, let me see how old I would have been. Probably about 8 years old, we attended a gospel church in Longreach. And when they asked people to come up to the front to be reborn and baptized, I jumped up. I was so moved by the preacher's speech. It touched my heart straight away. So up I went and headed down to the front to be reborn and baptized as 8-year-old. And my parents sort of looked at each other and shrugged their shoulders and followed me down. So we all got baptized and reborn in Christ that night. And I was a very evangelical little girl and determined to have stars in my crown in heaven. So I went around witnessing and talking to anybody I could about Jesus and the importance of people to find him and discover God in their lives. And we had about 4 or 5 years with that church, and I was still out in Longreach. And then we decided to go to Tasmania just for something different. And we went down there basically with the church, but the preacher's father-in-law was a very strange man, and my father was still very touchy and everything from the war, so we didn't stay very involved for long down in Tasmania, but we had a great year in Tassie. It was 1966, the year we changed decimal currency. I always remember heading down the highway and listening to the radio, or somewhere we heard it anyway, about the change of currency to decimal currency. Tasmania was very different to the outback of Australia. It was so cold and wet and grey. We were living in Burnie. We had a little Australian terrier dog living on one side of us on this hill, and on the other side was a man who loved to play the bagpipes. So he would play the bagpipes and the little dog would start howling and the cold, wet grey. It was just quite an incredible scene. And I was in, I think it was grade 6 or grade 7, and a fat little girl. So the teacher would run us along the beach and always be hitting me on the backside with the softball bat to keep moving a bit faster. So I found it quite challenging that year in some ways. Then we headed back to Brisbane for high school and uni. And let me just see if I have some more pictures to show you that might prompt me. This is more family from Europe. My dearest friend Jennifer in the middle, who's been by my side since about 1976. And on the right-hand side, I was married before, and my husband Robert, this was his daughter, Bianca, and her little son now, Aztec. So they're by marriage. I do have a daughter and a little grandson, so that's really wonderful, and I cherish them. They live in Cairns. Pardon me. Oops, going in the wrong direction. This is just some of my art. I've always loved drawing and singing, and I've done both. I did both at the Gospel Chapel and at most churches that I've belonged to. And I love doing children's books. These are sort of little adventure stories that I did for my nephew in Europe, and used to send them every year, a little book all made up with these sorts of drawings. And my real dream is that I can somehow write a book or books. And Claire Doherty thought that there was definitely books that I was going to write. And my dream is that I could write them and illustrate them and have some sort of musical, a CD to go with them as well. And then I was hoping will touch people's hearts and so that I can open the conversation about God and the inspiration that he has always been in my life. And this is how I express it. Yeah. Some of the musical things I've done. I did a lot of what do you call it, rock operas in the 70s, rock operas and stage shows. I was in a lot of bands. I worked in the film and television industry, and as a side addenda to that, I did a lot of recording for, people like John Farnham's albums, did a lot of studio work as well. And I've always loved singing. I ended up being quite an avid smoker, which I've recently stopped since I've been well. And my voice is coming back like a true bell. So I'm really looking forward to doing more singing again. It brings me a lot of joy. And as I said, I just want to touch people's hearts so that I can draw them to Heavenly Parent and true parents. When, Reverend Yutaka was talking about how we're going to face the 7 whatever billion people who in spirit world who are all saying, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you let me know? Very much moved my heart. So I just love with whatever life I have left to be able to do that. This is a slide of my involvement here in the Melbourne Church. I was Vice President of Women's Fed, was part of the band here with Jacinta and beautiful Tim and Narnia and Rick McInerney. We did a lot of singing. That was at a solstice, I believe.
Yes.
Celebration.
Summer solstice.
Summer solstice. And we did lots of singing together at various things, which was wonderful. And certainly, certainly gave us a lot of joy. And we enjoyed it enormously. Yona Nim came to Australia for Women's Fed. I don't have a picture of her here, but that was a very moving experience. And that on the right-hand side, that was me singing for her, singing a song for her and Hyojin. also felt very connected to Yojin, and Frank Kaufman told me lots of stories about his experience with him, and I thought, oh, that's a man after my own heart, and Yojin in some ways. So I was very moved. We had a lot of Korean children come here as part of a camp, and Jacinta and I did a lot of cooking for it, and that's me making my very first huge cakes for the camp. It was wonderful. And Ian, of course, has just been such a font. Ian Derbyshire, font of information. To live here in a house with him, where he has such wide knowledge about various, if I want to know something, he'll know the book, and that I can turn to for that wisdom, and pulls it off the shelf and hands it to me. So what a blessing that is, has been and continues to be. When I first came to the church, I was greeted by Beth Tracy and Suniko Vav, and all of these wonderful women. And I felt so connected to Jacinta, and we quickly bonded, and she just gets more and more like my blood sister every day. I just love her to pieces. This winter, she bought me this lovely jumper, beautiful, soft jumper that's part merino and part possum. Yay, to keep me warm in whatever happens. So I'm so grateful for that. She's just a darling. And I felt very much at home with the people of the church. Bible verses kept coming to my head when I came along, like, by their deeds you shall know them. And the people in the church were just the most wonderful people, and their actions were just the most selfless, loving ones I'd ever come across. So that was gave me a lot of comfort and feeling that I was on the right path. I joined the church in early 2012, having met Teddy online, and then I decided to really become a member. And then in August, True Father departed, so I never got a chance to actually see and meet him, which has always been such a heartbreak for me. But I was breathing the same air as he was for a few months there, so that was wonderful. I'm sure there's much more I wanted to say about coming to the church, but I'm just forgetting it. Anyway, after having met Teddy online, we decided that we'd proceed, and I'd go to America. And we got married. The civil service is on the right-hand side with our wonderful crazy mates from the Mesa standing up with us. And on the left there is the Albuquerque church, which sort of threw together a blessing and a marriage ceremony just for us, with cake and flowers. And it just seems everywhere I've gone in the church, I've just been greeted by unbelievable kindness and truly artistic experience. And I'm just so grateful. And America was no different. America was just sensational. I didn't feel quite as big in America. Australia doesn't like tall poppies, and I was always very big and bright and bold, and it just didn't suit a lot of people a lot of the time. But when I went to America, they sort of it's like a national thing that you stand up and be counted. And so I found them very supportive of all my creative endeavors, and they encouraged me to really be who I was, and applauded me for it. And I just found that so empowering and wonderful. I remember I felt when I was leaving America that even though it was impossible, I felt that I too could be president. That's the sort of energy the place gives one, if that's what you're looking for, I guess. And I had a ball. This is some of the experiences over there. The wonderful scenery, because I was in New Mexico. I wasn't so much in the big cities, although I did go to the Peace Starts With Me rally in New York. Teddy and I attended. thanks to the kindness of Joy Garrett and her husband Dale, who decided to send us there. They put us up at the New Yorker Hotel. And so there for nearly a week and attending the rally, and saw Susie and Steve Evans in the lineup outside Madison Square Garden. So that was a wonderful thing we weren't expecting, to see somebody from home being so far away. We went on a road trip, Joy. This is Joy in the yellow top. Oh, wrong way, go back. Come here. And we went right across country, well, from New Mexico to Arizona, where the Women's Fed Global Women's Peace Network had this big function. We passed through Winslow, Arizona. And you know that song by the Eagles, standing on a corner in Winslow, Arizona. So we stood there. There was statues of all the guys from that particular band. And Joy and we basically sang from the time we left Albuquerque the whole way, every sort of musical we could think of across country. And it was just a wonderful time. And all the middle picture here was a Project Phoenix that I rave on about so much. Frank Kaufman was taking the picture. And it was just such a lovely combination of second gen and first gen that were discovering each other for the first time, and really wonderful. And I just had to put this next picture of me riding a huge ant. As a child, I've always loved true nature and animals and insects. And I was an only child. My brother was 20 years older than me and had already left home. So, you know, nature was my friend, and quite often there weren't many other people around, and so I loved ants, and I'd feed them and build little things for them, little structures for them, and I just could sit there for hours watching them every day. And so when I went to Albuquerque, there was this, in one of the parks there's these huge ants. So it was like as if you're in an underground ant cavern. And the pathways, and of course I hadn't wanted to disturb them enough as a child to look at what was going on underground, but I could only imagine. And of course, when I went to Albuquerque, I could imagine it even more strongly. So, pardon me. So America for me was just extraordinary, really. And when I landed in New York, everybody can be who they are in New York. And I got offered all sorts of things on the streets of New York, which just made me scream with laughter at my age to be so asked if I wanted to buy this, that, or the other. But besides that, I just had this feeling that everybody is welcome in New York. There's not, all the, what would you call it, abuse that Dad had suffered in Brisbane in the very parochial 1950s here in Australia. Just blown out of the water. If only we'd landed in New York, who knows? But no, we're very happy that we landed where we did. But to come to a city like that, where anything goes, and every culture of the world is represented, it's just such a incredible resource, I think. Let's go on. Teddy and I saw the picture of him on the spiritual website, as I told you, and something really looks so familiar about this man. And, he's an African American, so I don't know what I was seeing, but it was something in his eyes. His eyes are very much like those liquid brown eyes that my mama had. And he has this very, what would you call it? Childlike wonder for the world, and something in innocence in his soul that is just not appreciated enough by people. And when I went to America with him, I was very much aware of the racism and, from shocked looks of people who'd maybe never been close to a Black person before, which is how Teddy explained it. I just thought it was outright racism and horrible, to you know, more aggressive looks, and people who actually wanted to start a fight with him. For what reason? Because his skin is black? I was just horrified. And you know, my Irish in me, I wanted to come out swinging, which is not the way to handle it at all. But we you know, had such differences. He lived off grid, as I told you. I was beyond shocked at not having, you know, running water. We had to carry it in big containers. I had a big backpack on the front and on the back, and carrying bags, and we had to walk for miles across this high desert, rocky roads, to a point where we could hitchhike. And for me, hitchhiking at 60 years of age in the middle of, you know, the outback of America, I was like, what is going on here? And how could Teddy be through such terrible situations? Oh my God. And anyway, I went to a friend's house on the Mesa, and I said to her, oh, your scales are broken. And she said, I don't think they are. And I'd lost something like 60 pounds, about 30 or 40 kilos. And I was just, you know, I was shocked and delighted. It was like that movie where Bette Midler goes to the basement and works on the exercise bike for months, and just has the same experience, really, of losing a lot of weight. So Teddy was determined to get me fit. I thought he was some sort of, you know, torture master. And we had very close times, but also we had times where I did not, what would you call it? I was not living as a true filial wife, and I was bucking at every turn. But you know, live and learn. Teddy was trying his best to get me to not be so self-focused, but try to turn our attention outwards. And of course, once we did things like we helped to build houses for Habitat for Humanity for single mothers in Taos. And it was within 2 weeks of starting that work that heaven was able to move. The Albuquerque church got in touch with me. They laid out a plan where we could get civilly married and then come along as an already married couple, just making things possible. Soon after I arrived in America, Teddy developed very severe rheumatoid arthritis. And so suddenly he couldn't he'd always been a carpenter and a builder, and suddenly he was almost paralyzed and couldn't do that. And I didn't have any income that had run out from Australia. And so we were there in this very challenging situation with absolutely no income. I managed to get some house cleaning work with some wonderful women who are still my friends to this day. And so I did a bit of cleaning.
I could
and then
continue
promptly
in my mobile, because I find also that going that all the way there, just in case it would be a queue.
Sorry, I'm not sure who's talking, but anyway.
It's Catherine.
I had a couple of accidents. I fell through the balcony at our little house on the Mesa and broke my shoulder in 5 places. So that sort of almost, you know, put an end to my cleaning work for a while. So we were really struggling. Teddy didn't want to go through the process of registering for disability, even though a woman from the office rang me and said he really qualifies, but he didn't like the whole process and sort of was very traumatized by it in the past. So, okay, so we didn't do that. And he had some, he started to get a bit better by having a very healthy sort of diet. And we did some work on the Mesa together as well, painting houses and doing all sorts of things. Anyway. Okay, just a little bit more of my drawings. Oh, the one on the left there, which this Aboriginal boy and his dingo friend. Teddy has taught himself and is teaching himself 3D graphics, and he's taken that drawing and basically is bringing it to life, making it move, and he's given the guy a name. He called him Spider, which is quite an Australian name. So that's one story that we're working on together. This is pictures of the hot springs. We're living almost very close to the Rio Grande River, which is not the big, wide, open river I always thought it was. It's quite a narrow river. But the gorge to get down to it, which is very close to where we lived, you go a mile down, and then you're rewarded with this beautiful, right next to the river, these hot springs, which pour out of the rocks. So the water is just like a hot spa. It's gorgeous. So we often went down there like at dawn and sit in the spa, look at true creation, see pictures in the rocks. It was just wonderful. And as you know, as the daylight came, you'd be sitting there in this lovely hot water. And it can get very hot and very cold on the mesa. This was a dog, Edward, that belonged to one of the ladies I cleaned for. And he became our stalwart dear friend and went on many adventures with us. In the middle is a drawing I did, which you can't see that well, of the hot springs and Teddy. Often through the gorge, you'd see hot air balloons. It was an area that was very popular for that, as well as Albuquerque was too. I tell you what, going down that mesa, oh, that was going down the gorge was quite a climb, and quite horrendous for me at first. And then after a while, I was off the path and going over the rocks, and I hear the Rocky theme playing as I got to the top after such an effort. In this picture, you see some, I don't know if you can because it's not that big, darlings, but whoops. Oh gosh, I'm all over the shop here. Hang on a minute. Oh yes. On the top right there is our little house, the Dragonfly. And you can see it's in a sea of sagebrush bushes. It was fine. The little area on the very top is where we lived, and how we managed to live in that tiny little room for 5 years without killing each other is a miracle. It's really a miracle. It was very little space, and we were both quite large people, and trying to fit in a life in those 4 walls was sometimes very cozy and deliciously yummy, and other times like, oh my God, run away. On the top left is what happens in wintertime when the snow comes. And guys, after not having any running water, having the whole land covered in snow was like a miracle. I just go out, I'd grab it and rub all over my face. It was like having a bath in the morning, and you could fill up saucepans and pots, and that was like water, and we hadn't had to drag it onto the mesa. So it was fantastic. Teddy had a cat, a beautiful cat called Miss B. I thought it was hilarious that he named his cat Miss B before I came along, the other B in his life. And she was just adorable. We think she might have been taken by coyotes in the end, which was very sad. But she'd come there, and Teddy had rescued her, and she adored him. And took me a while to build a bond with her, but I certainly did. The roads, oh, it's a shame you can't see that pictures in the middle blown up, but you just have these incredible vistas surrounded by, the mountains, as I said. So it was just like a picture postcard every day, a different one, and just loved it. The girl on the bottom right is my darling Stina, a New York activist with long dreadlocks to her bum, and she came to the mesa, and we were really hoping that she may take on the stewardship of Lakshmi Park. Now, Lakshmi Park is Teddy has quite a lot of land on the mesa, and his most beautiful land, which has on a hill with very few trees on the mesa, but actually that the top left picture shows all the land on the right there with trees and things. Well, that's the land that Teddy decided, in order to, neither of us have had children. So he was inspired to create a children's park and a school for the children of the Mesa on this land. And it launches on May the 1st this year. And he has done quite a bit of work there since this picture was taken. But it has been difficult because of his rheumatoid arthritis. But he set up a GoFundMe. I'm so proud of him, and going to support him 100%. There's some other people on the Mesa who do good works. They call themselves the Mesa Monks. And Teddy gave them, first of all, some land. When I say he let them stay on his another property over on that other side that has a trailer on it that they lived in. And so he was helping them, and they're helping him now to do things in the infrastructure on Lakshmi Park. Pardon me. So, yeah, the Mesa was quite extraordinary, and I was always, first of all, shocked. What do you mean you're giving your best land away? I want to live on that land. That's the best place in the whole. But Teddy was determined. Another funny thing that happened, he sent me this song, Annie's Song by John Denver. You fill up my senses like a night in a forest, like a mountain in springtime, like a walk in the rain. And I thought, this is the most romantic thing anybody's ever done for me. But the whole thing, it wasn't for me at all. It was his love song to Heavenly Parent. And so I was, mortified at first, but I've just come to find it just one of the most beautiful songs. And in the Chonshamwon prayer room, it was one of the songs that I sang. And I really sang a lot in that room. And told Heavenly Parent the story about how it was really our love song for him and her. Oh, come on, I don't want. I've seen that. Move on. Oops.
Oh, dogs.
Dogs. I'm such a nature lover. Here's just a few of the beasties that I've loved in my life. And I'm having such fun with the birds now here at Jacinta's house. They're just like how would you say it? It's an incredible gift from Heavenly Parent. And if you can stand still long enough and be in a situation that you're allowed to happen, true nature will just step up and heal your heart, heal your body. And I'm just, just so grateful for my experience through life with true nature. Ah, yes. What time is it? It's nearly. My God. Okay, sorry, guys. Let's wind it up there, and we'll continue another time. And thank you so much. I'm sorry. Last time I looked, it was 25 past. So that certainly moved quickly. Stop sharing. Get out of here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you for sharing and really giving us a glimpse of your life and such
pleasure.
a vibrant person. We don't have much time, but
Let's go.
some people want to make some comments already. Reverend Seti has his hand up, so let's go to Reverend Seti. Go ahead.
He didn't even talk about, how much I love the Pacific Islands. Seti. I want to come. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think your husband summed it up with that love song. Yeah, absolutely. You fill up our senses. You're a diva artist, amazing life. And I hope.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If I didn't head to America, I was going to head to Samoa. Just that close.
I didn't know you very long, but I feel like I've known you a long time. And that artwork, oh goodness, you're a wonderful artist. And yeah, but I think your husband summed it up with that John Denver song. You really fill up our senses, and much love in there. Thank you so much, Barbara.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sadie. Thank you. Let's pray.
Let's pray. Oh, now I would like to go ahead.
Darling, nah.
Hello.
He's doing such a great job.
So you give us so much hope. So much hope, Barbara. Yeah. Much hope. Thank you for your loving heart and sacrifice and faith. And yeah, wish all the best with you. And Lloyd, what's his first name again? Yeah. Thank you. All the best and good health to you too.
Thank you, Now. Thank you, everyone. I'm sure we have many people who like to say we can keep it for another day. It's actually time for us to offer our unison prayer. So I'll just share the screen and let's pray together. Jew. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day and see you tomorrow. And thank you, Barbara. Thank you for sharing your
Barbara
life.
today. Fantastic.
Thank you very much, Barbara. Wow, such a rich story. Wow.
We knew 100 times more than before.
You brought so many smiles to everybody's faces.
Yeah, that's it's incredible talk.
To all of us.
Thank you. Okay. See you next time. Bye.